The morning sun cast long shadows across the United Nations building in New York as world leaders gathered for what they thought would be a routine Security Council meeting. None of them knew that this day would change human history forever. Ambassador Robert Wilson sat at his usual place, reviewing his notes on recent border disputes, when the first signs appeared. The lights in the chamber flickered, and a low hum filled the air. Several delegates reached for their phones, but all screens had gone dark. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm," the Secretary General said, rising from his chair. His words were cut short as a bright blue light filled the center of the chamber. The light took shape, forming into 5 tall figures. Their appearance was both beautiful and alien. Silvery skin that seemed to shimmer like metal, and eyes that glowed with an inner light. The tallest among them stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Rax of the Galactic Council," the figure announced in perfect English. "We come in peace and with an invitation." The chamber erupted in chaos. Security personnel rushed forward but stopped when they realized their weapons wouldn't work. The alien visitors had somehow disabled all electronics in the room, except for the translation systems. "Please," Ambassador Rax raised a hand. "There is no need for alarm. We have been watching Earth for some time, and we believe you are ready to join the galactic community." The Secretary General, recovering his composure, stepped forward. "I welcome you to Earth, though I must say your arrival is quite unexpected. Our methods often are." Rax smiled, or at least made an expression that looked like a smile. "We find it best to evaluate species in their natural state, before they know of our existence." As the initial shock wore off, the meeting took on a more formal tone. The Security Council members began asking questions, and the aliens answered with practiced ease. They spoke of a vast network of civilizations, spanning 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, all united under the banner of the Galactic Council. Everything went smoothly until General Roberts, the U.S. military representative, asked about defense arrangements. "Ah, yes," Rax's expression changed to something like amusement. "We should discuss your military technology." He waved his hand, and a hologram appeared, showing various human weapons. "We find it quite fascinating that you still rely on chemical propellants and physical projectiles. Our weapons are highly effective," General Roberts said firmly. Rax made a sound that could only be described as a chuckle. "Effective? Perhaps against each other. But in the greater galaxy?" He shook his head. "Most civilized species abandoned such primitive weapons millennia ago. We use energy-based weapons exclusively." The general's face reddened. "With all due respect, Ambassador, our weapons technology has proven reliable and—" "Please," Rax interrupted, "do not take offense. We understand that you haven't had the opportunity to develop proper weapons yet. That's why we're here, to help advance your civilization." Another alien stepped forward, introducing himself as Dr. Venn, the Council's weapons expert. "Your most advanced projectile weapons," he said, bringing up an image of a naval railgun, "are like children's toys compared to even our civilian defense systems." The meeting continued for several hours, with the aliens explaining the process of joining the Galactic Council. Earth would be granted provisional membership, pending technological assessment and cultural integration. As the delegates left the chamber that evening, General Roberts walked beside Ambassador Wilson. "They're underestimating us," the general said quietly. Wilson nodded. "They seem to think highly advanced means highly effective. That's usually a dangerous assumption. Should we tell them about depleted uranium rounds or tungsten penetrators?" The general smiled slightly. "Let them laugh," Wilson replied. "History is full of empires that laughed at primitive weapons right up until they faced them in battle." High above Earth, in their cloaked ship, Ambassador Rax and Dr. Venn reviewed the day's events. "Such a proud species," Venn commented. "They actually believe their projectile weapons are worthwhile." Rax nodded. "They'll learn. They all do. Once they see our energy weapons in action, they'll abandon these prehistoric tools of war." Neither of them noticed the slight smile on the face of their junior analyst, who had actually studied human military history. She had learned one important lesson. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the deadliest. 2 weeks after first contact, Captain James Miller stood in the massive docking bay of the Galactic Council's space station. His team of 10 military experts watched as their simple transport ship was dwarfed by the gleaming alien vessels around them. "Welcome to Station Alpha," Dr. Venn said, his silvery skin reflecting the bay's bright lights. "We'll begin your technological assessment immediately." Miller nodded, keeping his face neutral. He'd been chosen to lead this mission because of his calm demeanor, that and his extensive combat experience, which the aliens didn't know about. The human team followed Dr. Venn through corridors filled with strange machines and even stranger alien species. Many stopped to stare at the humans, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden disdain. They entered a vast chamber that Miller immediately recognized as a firing range, though it was far more advanced than anything on Earth. Various alien weapons were displayed along the walls, each glowing with different colored lights. "This," Dr. Venn said proudly, "is where we test all new weapon systems before approving them for Council use." He picked up what looked like a sleek rifle. "This is a standard-issue plasma rifle. It can melt through 3 feet of solid steel." Miller watched as Dr. Venn demonstrated, the weapon firing a bright beam that turned a metal target into glowing liquid. The other Council weapons were equally impressive: sonic disruptors, gravity guns, and weapons that bent light itself. Then came the humans' turn. "You may now demonstrate your weapons," Dr. Venn said, unable to hide his smirk. Miller opened their weapon case and pulled out a standard-issue rifle. Several alien observers laughed openly. "Is that gunpowder-based?" one asked in disbelief. "Yes," Miller replied calmly. "Would you like to see how it works?" The aliens gathered closer, treating the demonstration like some sort of historical reenactment. Miller loaded the rifle and took aim at the target. The sharp crack of the shot echoed through the chamber. Several aliens jumped in surprise at the noise. The bullet hit dead center, punching a clean hole through the target. "How primitive," Dr. Venn said. "So much noise and smoke for such a small impact. Our weapons are much more efficient." Miller kept his patience. "With respect, Dr. Venn, efficiency isn't everything in combat. Sometimes simple is better." "Better," another alien scoffed. "Your projectile barely made a hole. Our plasma weapons can vaporize the entire target." "True," Miller agreed. "But what happens when you face an enemy with energy shields?" "Energy shields are standard defense," Dr. Venn explained slowly, as if talking to a child. "All Council combat ships and troops use them. They stop any energy-based attack." Miller smiled slightly. "But do they stop physical objects?" There was a pause. Dr. Venn blinked his glowing eyes. "Well, they're not designed for that. Physical attacks are so outdated that we didn't, but it doesn't matter. No one uses physical weapons anymore." The testing continued through the day. The humans demonstrated their various weapons: rifles, shotguns, even a small railgun prototype. Each time, the aliens dismissed them as obsolete, focusing on the lack of advanced technology rather than practical effectiveness. At the end of the day, the Council's assessment team gathered to deliver their verdict. The humans were granted only provisional military status, restricted from participating in any Council defense operations. As they walked back to their ship, Miller's second-in-command, Lieutenant Reed, spoke quietly. "They really don't get it, do they?" Miller shook his head. "They've forgotten that simple doesn't mean ineffective. All their fancy energy shields and plasma weapons, they've created a huge blind spot in their defenses. Should we tell them?" "No," Miller said, watching an alien ship land using its gravity drives. "Some lessons need to be learned the hard way. Besides," he added with a slight smile, "I have a feeling they'll find out soon enough." In his private chamber, Dr. Venn filed his report on the human weapons. Under threat assessment, he wrote a single word: negligible. It would prove to be the biggest mistake of his career. 3 months after the weapons assessment, the Galactic Council faced its first major crisis in centuries. The emergency meeting chamber was filled with representatives from 50 different species, all talking at once about the growing threat. Silence. Ambassador Rax commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. We must address this situation calmly. On the main screen, images showed the aftermath of another raid. A council colony world, its defenses completely destroyed. The death toll was rising. The pirates have attacked 12 colonies in the past month, reported the defense minister, a tall being with crystalline skin. Their shields are different. Our weapons can't penetrate them. Captain Miller sat quietly in the human observation section, watching the council members argue. Earth's provisional status meant they could only observe, not participate in military decisions. Show us the attack footage, ordered Dr. Venn, who looked considerably less confident than he had during the weapons assessment. The screen displayed a battle between Council defense ships and the pirate vessels. The Council ships fired their advanced energy weapons, plasma beams, particle cannons, and gravity disruptions, but each attack simply rippled across the pirates' shields without effect. How is this possible? Someone shouted. Those are our most powerful weapons. Dr. Venn stepped forward, his silvery skin pale with worry. The pirates appear to have developed adaptive shield technology. Their shields analyze incoming energy attacks and adjust to neutralize them. Then we'll modify our weapons, another council member suggested. Change the energy frequencies. We've tried, the defense minister replied. They adapt too quickly. Even our experimental weapons are useless. Miller watched as a pirate ship on the screen destroyed 3 council vessels with ease. He noticed something interesting. The pirates were only using energy weapons too. They had copied the council's technology, but made it better. Lieutenant Reed leaned over and whispered, "They're all thinking the same way. Energy versus energy. Nobody's considering alternatives." Miller nodded. He had already spotted the pirates' weakness, but council protocols prevented humans from speaking during military discussions. The debate continued for hours. More reports came in of colonies under attack. The pirates were growing bolder, their ships now appearing near major council worlds. We must act decisively, Ambassador Rax declared. I propose we double the power of our energy weapons. Surely they cannot adapt to that much force. Dr. Van shook his head. The power isn't the problem. The pirates' shields simply redirect any energy we throw at them. We need. He stopped, frustration clear on his face. In the observation section, Miller wrote notes in a simple paper notebook, something that made the aliens laugh when they saw it. But paper couldn't be hacked, and ideas couldn't be stolen from it. He sketched the pirate ship's shield patterns, noting how they rippled and flowed when hit by energy weapons. The shields were perfect at handling energy attacks, but they had never been tested against anything else. The pirates had copied the Council's greatest strength, but also their greatest weakness. The death toll on Colony 7 has reached 1,000, announced a grim voice. The chamber fell silent. Miller closed his notebook. The solution was simple, so simple that these advanced aliens couldn't see it. Sometimes you needed to step backward to move forward. As the council members argued about evacuation plans and shield frequencies, a junior aide approached Miller's seat. "Captain," she whispered, "Admiral Thompson requests your presence, unofficially." Miller nodded. Finally, someone in the council was ready to listen to alternatives. As he left the chamber, the screen showed another colony under attack. The pirates' shields glowed brightly as they absorbed every energy blast thrown at them. But they had never faced a simple bullet, and that was about to change. Admiral Thompson's private chamber looked out over the vast expanse of space. The view would have been beautiful if not for the emergency lights of passing rescue ships, all heading to different colonies under attack. "Captain Miller," the admiral said, turning from the window. I've reviewed your combat record from Earth. Very impressive. Miller stood at ease, noting the other figures in the room. Dr. Venn, looking uncomfortable, and 2 Council military commanders he didn't recognize. Thank you, sir. Though I was told human military experience wasn't relevant to Council operations, the Admiral's face tightened. Yes, well, circumstances have changed. Dr. Venn tells me you've been observing the pirate attacks carefully. I have, sir. And? The Admiral leaned forward. Do you see anything we've missed? Miller pulled out his notebook. The aliens in the room looked at the paper with a mixture of confusion and disdain, but they stayed quiet. The pirates' shields, Miller began, are perfect at handling energy. They can absorb, redirect, or reflect any energy weapon in the Council's arsenal. But that's all they do. We know this already, one of the commanders said impatiently. What the captain means, Dr. Venn interrupted, surprising Miller, is that we've been so focused on energy weapons, we've forgotten about alternatives. The Admiral's eyes widened slightly. You're suggesting we use human weapons? Projectile weapons? Miller nodded. Their shields are designed to handle energy, not physical objects. A railgun round traveling at high velocity would pass right through. Primitive weapons against advanced shields. The second commander scoffed. This is what we've come to. Sometimes the old ways are best, Miller said calmly. He turned to Dr. Venn. Doctor, what happens when a physical object hits an energy shield? Dr. Venn looked embarrassed. We don't actually know. It's been so long since anyone used physical weapons that we never tested for it. Then let's test it now, Admiral Thompson said. 20 minutes later, they stood in the weapons testing chamber. Miller had set up a standard rifle, while the aliens generated an energy shield identical to the pirates. This shield, Dr. Venn announced, can stop our strongest plasma cannons. Proceed with your test, Captain. Miller took aim and fired. The crack of the rifle made everyone jump. Except this time, they watched in amazement as the bullet passed straight through the shield and buried itself in the target behind it. Impossible, whispered one of the commanders. No, Dr. Venn said, his scientific curiosity overtaking his prejudice. The shield is designed to interact with energy. A physical projectile has no energy signature to detect and deflect. It's brilliant in its simplicity. Admiral Thompson turned to Miller. How quickly can Earth prepare military ships with these weapons? We have ships ready, sir. We've been quietly retrofitting them with Council technology while maintaining our conventional weapons. You've been preparing for this. Miller smiled slightly. On Earth, we have a saying, better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. The Admiral nodded decisively. I'm calling an emergency council session. Captain, I want you to present your solution personally. An hour later, Miller stood before the full Galactic Council. The chamber was silent as he explained the plan. A joint task force, human ships equipped with both technologies, Council ships modified to carry physical weapons. This is preposterous. Someone shouted. We cannot rely on primitive weapons. Would you rather rely on colonies burning? Admiral Thompson demanded. While we debate, people are dying. The pirates think they're invincible because they know all our tricks. It's time to show them something new, something old. The council erupted in argument, but Miller noticed more heads nodding than shaking. Sometimes pride had to bow to necessity. Ambassador Rax stood, raising his hands for silence. We will vote. But first, Captain Miller, please demonstrate your weapon one more time. I believe some council members need to see it with their own eyes. Miller picked up his rifle. It was time to teach the galaxy an old lesson. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. The next 2 weeks aboard Station Alpha were unlike anything in Council history. The massive docking bay that once held only sleek energy-powered ships now contained a mix of vessels. Council ships being retrofitted with railguns and human vessels getting upgraded with alien tech. Captain Miller watched from an observation deck, as crews worked around the clock. Below him, Lieutenant Reed was teaching a group of alien soldiers how to handle basic firearms. "No, hold it firmly against your shoulder," Reed demonstrated. "Yes, there will be recoil. That's the point." The aliens struggled with concepts that every human recruit learned in basic training. They were used to weapons that fired beams of light. No recoil, no bullet drop, no need to lead a moving target. Dr. Venn approached Miller, looking tired but excited. "Captain, you need to see this." He led Miller to the science lab where a team of council engineers had been working. On the main screen was a simulation of a railgun round hitting a pirate shield. "We've improved the design," Dr. Venn explained. "By adding a council alloy to the projectiles, we increased their penetrating power by 300%. Miller nodded approvingly. "How are the hybrid ships coming along?" "Better than expected. Your kinetic weapons are surprisingly compatible with our power systems. Though I still can't believe we're installing actual gunpowder weapons on council vessels." "Sometimes the old ways work best," Miller said, a phrase that was becoming common around the station. In another part of the station, Admiral Thompson was reviewing tactical plans with council commanders. The pirates had grown bolder, attacking larger colonies, confident in their shield technology. "They still don't know what we're planning," the admiral said, pointing to intelligence reports. "They think we're developing a new energy weapon." "Their overconfidence will be their weakness," agreed Commander Toll, one of the few council officers who had quickly embraced the new strategy. "They've never faced anything like this." Back in the docking bay, Reed was now teaching advanced combat techniques. The alien soldiers had finally mastered basic shooting and were learning about cover, suppressing fire, and tactical reloads, concepts that had been unnecessary with energy weapons. "Your projectile weapons require much more skill," one alien soldier admitted, "but I'm starting to understand their advantages. No energy signature to detect, no shield can stop them, and they never run out of power." Miller smiled as he walked past the training session. The council forces were learning fast, adapting centuries of human combat experience to their advanced technology. In the armory, human gunsmiths worked alongside alien engineers, creating new weapons that combined both technologies. They mounted targeting systems designed for plasma rifles onto conventional sniper rifles. They modified alien power cells to drive electromagnetic railguns. "It's beautiful," Dr. Venn said, examining the hybrid weapon. "We thought we had reached the peak of weapons technology. We never considered looking backward to move forward." The preparation wasn't all smooth. Some council members still opposed the plan, arguing that it was beneath their dignity to use primitive weapons. But as reports came in of more colonies falling to the pirates, the opposition grew quieter. 3 weeks after the council approved the plan, the Joint Task Force was ready. 20 ships, 10 human, 10 council, all equipped with both technologies. Their crews were trained in both fighting styles. They had run countless simulations and drills. Miller stood on the bridge of his ship, now upgraded with council engines and sensors, but still bristling with railguns and missile tubes. Lieutenant Reed handled the final equipment check, while Dr. Venn monitored the new hybrid systems. "All ships report ready, Captain," Reed announced. Miller looked at the tactical display, showing the latest pirate attack in progress. The pirates had no idea what was coming. They had copied the Council's greatest strengths, but in doing so, they had also copied their greatest weakness. "Send the signal to all ships," Miller ordered. "Operation Throwback is now active." Throughout the task force, weapons that hadn't been used in galactic warfare for thousands of years were loaded and armed. The pirates were about to learn an ancient lesson: never underestimate a primitive weapon. The Centauri colony was burning. 3 pirate ships hung in orbit, their energy shields glowing as they easily deflected the colony's defensive fire. The pirates had grown so confident in their shield technology that they didn't even bother with evasive maneuvers anymore. "Status report," Captain Miller commanded from the bridge of his ship, the Challenger. "Pirates are continuing their attack on the colony. Lieutenant Reed replied. "They haven't noticed us yet. Our new stealth systems are working perfectly." The task force's 20 ships moved silently through space, their Council-enhanced engines running cold. On every bridge, human and alien crew members worked side by side, ready for their first real combat test. "All ships, battle formations," Miller ordered. "Remember your training. Energy weapons are for distraction only. Let them think we're just another Council response force." The pirate ships finally noticed the approaching fleet. But instead of retreating, they turned to face the new threat, shields brightening with confidence. "They're hailing us," Reed announced. "Put them through." A harsh voice filled the bridge. "More Council ships. Haven't you learned your lesson yet? Your weapons cannot harm us." Miller smiled slightly. "Maybe we've learned a different lesson. All ships, execute Pattern Alpha. Fire energy weapons." The task force ships opened fire with their plasma cannons and particle beams. As expected, the pirates' shields easily absorbed the attacks. "Is that all you've got?" The pirate leader laughed. "Your weapons are useless." "Are they?" Miller asked calmly. "Or are they just a distraction? All ships, deploy kinetics. Fire at will." The space between the fleets suddenly filled with very un-alien weapons fire. Railgun rounds streaked across the void at incredible speeds. Traditional naval guns, upgraded with Council targeting systems, launched their shells. The pirates realized too late that something was different. Their perfect energy shields, designed to stop the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, did nothing against simple pieces of metal moving at high speed. The first railgun round punched straight through the lead pirate ship's shield as if it wasn't there. The shell penetrated the hull, causing explosive decompression. More rounds followed, tearing into the suddenly vulnerable vessels. "Impossible," the pirate leader screamed over the comm. "These are just Council ships. Your weapons can't." "These aren't just Council ships," Miller interrupted. "And we're not just using Council weapons. All ships, advance and engage. Show them what humanity brings to the fight." The task force ships moved forward, maintaining their barrage. Human gunners, their skills honed by centuries of naval warfare, found their marks with deadly accuracy. Council crew members, who had spent weeks training with their new weapons, proved to be quick learners. The pirates tried to adjust their tactics, but they had no defense against physical projectiles. Their shields, which had made them invincible against energy weapons, were now useless. "Target their engines," Miller ordered. "We want prisoners for interrogation." The battle was shockingly brief. In less than 10 minutes, 2 pirate ships were completely disabled, and the third was trying to escape. "Should we pursue?" Reed asked. Miller looked at Dr. Venn, who had been quietly observing the battle. The alien scientist nodded in agreement. "No," Miller said. "Let them run. Let them tell the others what happened here. Let them spread the word that the Council has found a new way to fight." As damage reports came in, the results were clear. The task force had suffered no casualties. Not a single ship had been lost. The pirates' supposedly invincible shields had been defeated by technology they had considered too primitive to be a threat. "Send word to Station Alpha," Miller ordered. "Operation Throwback is a complete success. The pirates' shields are vulnerable. Request permission to begin full combat operations against all pirate forces." As the message was sent, Miller watched the disabled pirate ships drift in space, their once mighty shields now dark and useless. Sometimes the best way forward was to take a step back. Sometimes the old ways were still the best ways. And sometimes being called primitive wasn't an insult. It was just a failure of imagination. 1 month after the Battle of Centauri Colony, the Galactic Council chamber was packed. Representatives from every member species had gathered for what would become a historic session. The mood was very different from the first time humans had stood in this room. Captain Miller, now wearing a new uniform that combined human military styling with Council insignia, stood beside Admiral Thompson as Ambassador Rax addressed the assembly. Fellow council members, Rax began, his silver skin gleaming under the chamber lights. We are here to acknowledge a grave error in judgment and to celebrate an unexpected victory. The screens around the chamber showed footage from the past month. Pirate ships, once thought invincible, being systematically destroyed by the Joint Task Force. Their perfect shields, useless against simple kinetic weapons, failing time and time again. In our pride, Rax continued, we dismissed human technology as primitive. We laughed at their weapons, but in doing so, we revealed our own primitive thinking. Dr. Venn stepped forward, carrying a strange-looking weapon, a council plasma rifle modified with human elements. Our scientists have been working closely with human weapons experts. The results have been revolutionary. He activated a hologram showing the new hybrid weapons in action. By combining our energy weapons with human kinetic designs, we've created defense systems that are truly superior. Not because they are more advanced, but because they are more complete. The council members watched in amazement as test footage showed the new weapons in action. Ships equipped with both technologies could handle any threat, adapting their approach based on the enemy's defenses. The pirates made the same mistake we did. Miller addressed the council for the first time. They thought copying your most advanced technology would make them invincible. They forgot that newer doesn't always mean better. Admiral Thompson nodded. In the past month, pirate attacks have dropped by 90%. The word has spread. Their shields can't protect them anymore. Many are surrendering without a fight. Therefore, Ambassador Rax's voice grew formal. I propose 2 motions. First, that Earth be granted full council membership, with all rights and privileges. Second, that Captain Miller be appointed as head of the new Joint Defense Initiative, where human and council military forces will work together as equals. The vote was unanimous. The same council that had laughed at human weapons now stood and applauded as Miller accepted his new position. Later, at the celebration, Miller found himself standing with Dr. Venn at the same observation window where they had first clashed over weapons technology. I owe you an apology, Captain, Dr. Venn said, watching ships pass by. Council vessels now proudly sporting railguns alongside their energy weapons. I called your weapons primitive. I was wrong. They are primitive, Miller replied with a smile. That's what makes them work. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. We're already seeing changes across the council, Dr. Venn noted. Species are rediscovering their old weapons, combining them with new technology. It's like going back to go forward. Lieutenant Reed joined them, carrying something that made Dr. Venn laugh. A paper notebook. These are becoming popular among council scientists, Reed explained. Can't be hacked, never runs out of power, and works after an EMP blast. Sometimes old technology is the best technology. The celebration continued into the night. Humans mingled with aliens, sharing stories and ideas. Council weapons experts eagerly discussed ballistics with human gunners. Earth engineers learned about plasma containment from alien scientists. In one corner, a group gathered around Ambassador Rax as he examined an old revolver, marveling at its simple mechanical perfection. To think, he said, we thought we had all the answers. But you taught us the most important lesson of all. What lesson is that? Someone asked. Rax carefully set down the revolver. That wisdom isn't measured by how advanced you are, but by how well you understand that every tool, no matter how simple or complex, has its place. Miller looked out at the stars, thinking about how far they'd come. The council had learned to respect human technology, but humans had learned something too. That true strength comes not from having the most advanced weapons, but from being wise enough to use the right tool for the job. Whether it was a plasma cannon or a simple bullet, the galaxy was changing, and it had all started because someone had laughed at a gun.